I'm O.W. Root, and this is Pleasant Peninsula. We had the first snow of the year up here in the deep north. As you can see behind me, on the ground, there is snow. There was snow on the streets. The snowplows weren't really keeping up, and it was that wet, heavy snow. You know, the snow that's good for packing snowballs and snowmen, not good for sledding. The truth is, the snow's not going to stick. It's going to be melted by the end of the week, maybe even the end of tomorrow. We don't really get snow that sticks until January. Nevertheless, it was the first snow of the year, and it is weird to see. We don't have any leaves on the branches up here, but down by Traverse City, they're basically still peak there. And it's so weird to see 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground right next to an orange or red or yellow tree. It's just odd. It's not right. It's bizarre. The snow is supposed to be when the leaves are twigs and it's sticky winter, not when it's colorful fall. And it is still fall. But nevertheless, it was the first snow of the year. And even though it won't stick, first snow has to happen sometime. But I have a funny, a weird, a bizarre factoid about the first snow of the year. And I only have a few data points, but they all check out. Whenever my wife and I have a child, when my wife gives birth to that child, that day, the next day, or extremely shortly after, the first snow of the year happens. And it's not just it starts snowing, it's the first snow of the year. Without doubt, every single time it's happened. For our first, years ago, it was near the end of October. And October is still way bona fide fall. I mean, you're not even in November. Nobody's thinking about snow in October. The next day, I was standing in the hospital room, looking out the big bank of windows, and light little flakes started falling from the gray sky. I said to my wife in some sort of poetic way, it's the first snow of the year. It's a sort of inside joke we have. And it was the first snow of the year. A few years after that, a little later, in November, my wife, son, and I were driving to Traverse City so my wife could give birth to our second child. She was in labor. And I've written about this before, but a snowstorm happened that night as we were driving to the hospital, as we were driving down to Traverse City. And I maintain, and I've written about this, that Antrim County in Michigan is the worst county for weather in the whole state of Michigan. It's, for some reason, it's a black hole vortex. Whenever you're driving, when it's snowing, it snows worse there, and the roads are terrible. It's just, there's something preternatural about it. It's primeval. I don't know what is the deal with Antrim County, but there's something going on there. Nevertheless, it was a terrible snowstorm, just huge wet flakes, and our car broke down on the side of the road, and we had to take an ambulance to the hospital. And a few hours later, our second child was born. First snow of the year. It's 2 data points. And now I have a third data point. Just this past weekend, my wife gave birth to our third child. And it was not snowing on the way to the hospital, but it was raining. And it was windy and rainy and blustery through Antrim County again. But the day after, first snow of the year came. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's without fail. 3 strikes, you're out. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not sure it means anything. Maybe it's just a funny coincidence. Whatever it is, it's bizarre. And I know that if my wife's going to give labor, or if my wife's going into labor and going to give birth to a kid, it's going to snow pretty soon after. Maybe we need to name a kid Snow. Seems appropriate. Michigan Chillers, Jonathan Rand. Do either of those names ring a bell? Well, whether they do or they don't, you're going to learn about them. Let's roll that clip.
You know, I started writing as early as like first grade, just kind of doing my own version of what you'd call fan fiction. And I always kind of gravitated towards spooky stories, ghost stories, things like that. I wanted to come up with a metaphor. If you took everything about the beauty of Michigan, you know, the water, the incredible forest land and the clean air, and you took all of it and you put it into a bottle and you sold it on the shelf of a store, what would you call it? One of those names I came up with was a Michigan chiller. And I remember thinking about this, and I asked my wife, I said, what do you think about this? Because it sounds to me like it would be like a series for kids. And we thought more and more about it, and I started thinking, I could do these stories and they could take place in different cities or towns around the state, so that if the person reading the book was from Michigan, maybe they would have been there, maybe they lived there. And so my first book was, I picked Mackinac Island. It's a big tourist destination, and I thought, well, if I choose Mackinac Island, it's going to be a place that a lot of people are familiar with. It's not too far from, where we live, and a lot of fascinating history. I just loved it. And immediately before that was even published, I was writing Terror Stalks Traverse City, and then Poltergeist at Petoskey, and Aliens Attack Alpena. Routinely, this happens everywhere I go. Not a single day goes by where someone doesn't come up to me that's maybe in their 20s or early 30s, and they'll say, I don't want you to feel old or anything, but, you came to my elementary school when I was in, third grade, and this is my son, and he's reading the very same books that I bought from you when you came to my school. And to me, that's an aspect of what I do that I never expected, and it's the most rewarding thing I think I've ever felt. There's no paycheck in the world that could replace that. That is just the most special feeling to see parents come in and say, these books, what you wrote this was my childhood, and it got me into reading, and now I'm sharing that same love with my children. And it's just that, to me, is even if I had to just end my career right now, I would look back at it and go, that was worth it.
I love that place. I love that story. I love that guy. Jonathan Rand has created a whole world, a whole literary world with Michigan Chillers, American Chillers, all of the spooky and scary stories he writes. He's also created a whole world in Indian River at Chillermania, where I talked with him. At Chillermania, you saw there's all these tarantulas and skeletons and mummies and witches and all these spooky things. It's Halloween every single day of the year. Spooky and scary. But he's not spooky and scary. He is one of the nicest guys. He took 45 minutes at least talking to me that day. Took time out of his busy schedule. I couldn't fit everything in that short video. He told me so much about his life, his inspiration, and it gave me a lot to think about. When I left Chillermania and I was driving home, I couldn't stop thinking about the influence he's had. I thought about that last thing he said at the end, where he said, not a day goes by that someone doesn't come up to him and say, I read your books when I was a kid, and now my kids are reading your books. And it was my childhood, and it's so cool to see them experiencing the same thing. And he said, that's the greatest thing in the world. Couldn't stop thinking about the influence he's had, how many kids he's impacted for the better. How many kids hated reading or thought they didn't like reading until they picked up a Michigan Chiller? You know what it's like being a kid. I remember you're reading this stuff in school and you're bored by it. It's not exciting. And you think you don't like reading. All it takes is one book, and it invites you in to a world that you're interested in, and you're hooked, and you can't put it down. And you keep reading, you keep flipping pages, and you stay up too late reading it. And that's your gateway to books. And that's a gateway to knowledge, and to so much more than you ever could have dreamed of before. It's incredible the influence he's had. I don't think it's possible to quantify how many kids Jonathan Rand and his writing and his books, how many kids he's influenced and how many kids' lives he's changed in a real way by inviting them in to a world of reading, and a world that they might love. It's an incredible thing. The world's better because of the books Jonathan Rand has written. I'm O.W. Rook for Michigan Enjoyer.